Alchemy of Love. You said you only get one view.
Hi, cuties that are catching the replay. Let your cute self in here. Hi, baby. I'm so sorry. I fucked up the time, so I'm so sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I like got on and then I was sending the last email like, oh, I can't wait. And then I was like, oh shit.
I've been here an hour ago and I was like, but it says like 4 p.m. my time zone and it was 4 p.m. I was like, what is it? And then I checked Instagram and it's you had that countdown. It was like 50 minutes. What?
Oh my God. Honestly, the timing, I was like, I never have meetings before 10 a.m. I'm like, what is this? And then I like looked and I'm like, oh, pickle. My bad.
Yeah. That's right. It said 9 a.m. In your time zone. I think you're in Florida or something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Anyway,
all right.
pickles, all the things. I think it's just gonna be new today because Jade is in Australia, so it's like super early for her. So it's not she's like, hi Jade, we love you. And so I have your questions here, and I'm just gonna kind of run through those ones. I love it. Thank you so much. And then anything else after that, we can just hang out, have a conversation, what comes up for you, all the good things. And so the first one I have is, do you have any questions before we get into that? Like other than
No.
questions.
I think I probably have some spontaneously, but those were the two main issues I had while journaling.
Perfect. Okay. So I discovered that I had a hard time finding something good in my wounds because currently they block what I want. So if I have any tips, that would be grateful. And so the thing around that is that's what our protectors do, right? Like that's what our programming is. It's to protect us from things that hurt us at a time or blockers or characteristic stuffs. Like one of my biggest things going through this whole entire journey is mine was self-righteousness and that I wasn't a safe place for people to say no to. And that was a huge intimacy blocker, especially for men that already struggle with saying the word no. It was like, you're definitely not a safe place for me to say no to. And it was like, I couldn't see it because that's how my mother was. I was raised by a because I said so mother, where it's like, we give no explanation. This is just, this is how it is. And this is what I'm going to say. And this is how it goes. And I carried that because what I realized underneath that was more so, I thought that's how you get your way, and I wasn't okay with not getting my way instead of inviting the masculine in and then not feeling safe if they were to say no, even though, because it came from a neediness, not a want. It came from this like, if you don't do this, I won't be okay. And that's not an invitation. And so it was when a partner actually started to, one of my first like serious relationships, he brought up, he's like, you're just like not very nice. Like you are very nice, but like if you want something, you're not very nice. And at first I'm like defiant because I'm like, what the hell do you mean I'm the nicest person on this planet? Like look at my career, look at what I do. Like this whole defiant, like my protectors could not see it. And so it makes sense that that's what's happening, where it's like it's this intimacy blocker and it gets in the way. And it wasn't until later one of my most recent partners brought it up where he's like, it just feels like I can't say no to you. And I was like, shit, like thank you so much, this is the protector I've been looking for. And he's like, that is not the response like I thought I was gonna get from you. But like, and that's the difference where it's like, I wish it wasn't, it's something that you can just like no, like you can go through a series of questions and all of a sudden all your blind spots and therefore you're the perfect partner and you don't have this. And so when it comes to this version, and we can talk on this a little bit more, the part of this it is a blind spot. And so when we have people in our life that are close to us that we can trust and they give you honest feedback about something, like for me, the self-righteousness, for me, not being a safe place to know. My best friend has been telling me this for years. My dad has been telling me this for years, but I didn't want to hear it up until my subconscious was ready, because that's what happens. Your subconscious is going to protect you for the longest time until it's finally ready to be healed. And so there's that version, first off, where it's like, one, witnessing, okay, the wound that you have, how do the people closest to you communicate that to you that you may have not actually sat down to listen to? For, you know, like I said, my best friend telling me I'm self-righteous. I'm like, yeah, because I'm right. Like, it's literally that. And then I'm like, wait, like 6 people that I love have said this to me. So how can I look at this so that my relationships are better? And that's one way. And then another way is going back to module A and doing that younger self meditation, where it's going in, it's feeling into your body, because it's not necessarily we have to go into that pain and whatever was that sacred wound, right? Whatever the initial wound was, you don't necessarily have to go back to the wounding of what happened, but your body will tell you, right? Like my self-righteousness, when I don't want to be wrong, I just feel it like in my entire like sacral area, it just gets so tight. And so I can just sit and breathe into it and go, okay, so what are you trying to protect me from right now? Not what happened or why is this here or whatever. It's just like, why are you trying to protect me? And when I would sit with that feeling in my sacral, it was like, oh, I don't want to look stupid, because I was that kid in school that got bullied. And if you're not smart, you get bullied, all the kind of things. And so I would sit with, and I was like, oh, but we're like 30 years old. It's okay if you look stupid. Like, no one is going to bully you. You're actually totally safe. And so it's like sitting with wherever that pain is in your body. And that's in that meditation and module A. Just kind of see to get clear on whatever that is so that you can unblock it. It's not necessarily, you know, I have to figure it out. And then the third thing that I wanted to address was looking at, you know, making it a sacred wound. So those were all about like just kind of figuring out what the wound is because it's being blocked, but making it a sacred wound. Sometimes it sounds silly, right? Like if you sit there and it's like, oh, but what the hell would your self-righteousness be good for, right? Like it's just been this intimacy blocker. It's put you on this pedestal. It's on this thing. But the truth is, it's gotten me far in my career, because I truly believe my methods and my things are the best thing on this planet. Like you cannot debate me on that subject. You cannot debate me on certain things in that way. And it's like, in some degrees of life, I needed my self-righteousness. In some degrees of life, I needed my bitchiness. I needed my like tenacity to go after things. But when it came to love and intimacy, it wasn't the same thing. Like I don't need it there because it was just protecting me. And so there's the different spectrums of what can you make that sacred wound in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just intimate relationships. Yeah, like my self-righteousness was my biggest intimacy blocker, but my self-righteousness is the reason I have the life and the career that I have now. It was just differentiating where that is in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's something I never thought about. I was looking at my wounds, and I was looking from it, at it from a perspective of they have to be sacred everywhere, in every single thing I do. And I have I think it's also like something you said, my wounds right now block me from starting my own business. I quit my job, and I wanted to go, I wanted to jump, and then there were so many things that came up that I felt, oh my gosh, I'm not really able to hold myself right now. I can't. Oh, I want to be a life coach, so that's probably something important. And I felt like I can't handle someone else's problems right now. And then looking at that from a perspective of, oh, your wound is sacred, that was really hard for me, because yeah, I know that is what got me to the point. My wounds got me to the point where I wanted to become a life coach, but also they are blocking me right now from becoming it. So that was so that didn't make sense for me. But on the other hand, I'm just chilling right now. I'm taking the time for myself. I'm trying to heal a lot of things, and I have so much time that I haven't had in the past 30 years. I've never been on my own in my own apartment and things like that. So I do know that there are good things, but it was also quite heavy to see, or quite, I felt some anger coming up, because I was like, but I wanted to start right now. I'm not starting. What is it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it actually brought a very big pause in my life, which is also, yeah, kind of good.
Yeah. And like, even underneath that, right? Like, the sacred part of that is something happened that made you want to become a life coach. Right? No one becomes a life coach because they went to school for it. None of us. I've never heard anyone be like, yeah, everything was hunky dory, and all of a sudden now I want to, life coach. It's like, no, something happened. You found your way through it to some type of degree, and therefore you want to help other people, correct?
Yeah.
That's the sacred part of it. Having it all figured out, girl, I have been through how many breakups? I've been through how much, like, even though I'm in this world, that you guys still jump in, you still do the things. Do I have it figured out? No. Do I get jealous sometimes? Yes. Do I have my feminine pain body and like all these things? Yeah. Like, there is no such thing as being this like perfect human being, right? Like, that doesn't exist. And that's why I love my brand so much, because I tell you guys my shit. I'm like, this happened. But also, here's how you get through it. And it really is that piece where I talked about in module A, is the acceptance piece, right? Like, accepting the shadow, accepting that you're never actually going to be 100%, accepting that your past happened, accepting that you want to be a life coach and you still have so much life to learn. That's the good part, but the point of looking at the wound is just, okay, so if this is what's blocking me, I think I'll use a relationship example. I think I'm unlovable because I've been abandoned by every male in my life. That's a huge one that I've had to work through over the years. I've been abandoned by every male in my life, including my father. And so it's sitting there and it's like, okay, so that could mean I'm unlovable, I'm undateable, there's something wrong with me, I reject masculinity, da 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 da, all these things. But the truth is, if none of that happened, I wouldn't have the career that I have. I wouldn't have this deep understanding of polarization and femininity and masculinity and how this all works. I wouldn't be in the arena that I'm in. Do I have it fully figured out? No, I spend thousands of dollars on therapy. It's like I'm still in that arena because it's something that I'm passionate about. Would I have that passion if I had a loving father? Probably not. I wouldn't have been curious about this and then been able to teach what I now teach, So where is it for you that you could see, yes, you are in this sacred pause right now, right? Like, that's a beautiful thing. You're never going to have it. If all goes as planned, one day you're going to be a mother, a wife, busy as fuck with your career, all these kind of things. And you are going to remember this sacred pause and be like, damn, I'm glad I didn't rush it. And so it's looking at this moment in time, and when are you going to get the time again to like look at, okay, this is my block, right? This is the block that I have. And if you view it as something that's negative, you're going to stay in the cycle because you're going to constantly think you're not ready yet, or you're going to think you're not good enough yet, or you're going to think you have to know more, all these kind of things where it's like, what's the next best thing to get you out of that block? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I have to or what I did in the past few weeks, I started to accept that there is a pause, and I started to embrace it, to just be like, well, it's summer in Germany right now. It's getting warm outside, so I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not even trying to plan, oh, next week I have to start, next week I have to, I don't know, do something for my business. Just, yeah, let it be. And I try to trust in the universe that one day I will know that it's right now to start at that moment. So yeah, I try to relax because you said that if I look back, I don't wanna regret not enjoying it. Like, if I think about being 40 and as you said, being a mother, being a wife, having, I don't know, a house and then a business and anything, and no time for myself, or less time, I don't want to look back and be like, oh, when I was 30 I had like 6 months a complete pause, but I didn't enjoy it. I was so rushed, and I, yeah, probably had the free time but didn't really make anything out of it. I couldn't relax.
Yeah. And
So
like,
I could have stayed in my job. Yeah.
and like being in the pause is where you have the lessons, honestly, because you can get the downloads. And when we talk about femininity in the next one, like that's when you're open, right? You're relaxed, you're not doing, you're in receivership. And that's when you get these moves. And even right now, it's moving forward. You're in programs like this, you're studying stuff so that you can ultimately use it. That's, you know, what we do. We take a whole bunch of freaking programs, we compile what we like and what we don't like, and then we come up with our own methods. That's literally what coaching is. It's like all these kind of things, and then we compile it with our life lessons, and that's what we do. Like that's how it works. And so being in spaces like this, it's not a block, you know, it's not, and yes, it can feel that way. Like that, I'm not gonna like not validate the fact that that does feel like it, but it really is just witnessing that conversation within your head of like, okay, so how is this a value add to my life? And if it's not, if it feels like there's a gap, how can I actually make it a gain in my life? How can, for example, like right now, I'm in literally a pause. Like I am moving in September. I am so over, I have been over living where I'm living, right? Like I am just, it's not my community, it's not my place, there's not nature. I moved here with a partner, like I'm ready to get the heck out, right? If I sit and I just think about how much I can't wait to get out of here and what the next best thing is, I'm going to be anxious, I'm going to be miserable, I'm going to be closed off to life and the magic of God didn't put me here by mistake. There's a reason I'm in this moment of waiting where I'm like, okay, what is it? And so if I can switch my mindset around how is this actually a gain for me? And I've done the same thing that I was just telling you, where I was like, by the time I get to where I'm moving, I'm going to be running my in-person events. I'm going to be doing all these kind of things. I'm going to be, you know, my career, my life, future husband, baby. Like I'm never going to get this 3-month period where all I have to focus on is you guys and my work and my best friend. When else is my life going to have that much stillness? Wow, that's actually a huge gain. In this moment, I get to study my ass off. I get to become the version of me, because that's ultimately what this program is, right? Getting you ready. It's becoming the one. That's what that is. It's not necessarily finding the one. It's how do you become the one in business, in life, in partnership? How do you become that version of yourself that is a match for the thing that you want to call in? That's what these periods are. And that's kind of what switches our mindset. I was listening to a podcast this morning around, you know, singleness and pauses and things like that. And it's oftentimes in these spaces of sacred pauses, it's like we're just going to the next thing, right? Like we think being single means I'm single because I'm looking for my next person, as opposed to I'm choosing to be single because I want to learn about myself right now. I'm choosing to be single because I'm breaking the habit of constantly looking for a relationship, or constantly, you know, anytime I'm meeting someone going, is that my person? And it gets exhausting when actually you can just be in the present moment of like, I'm single. I'm in my pause and this is my choice. And so instead of just like sitting here as an incubation period of like, I'm waiting for the next thing, it's like, actually, I'm making this moment mean it's my growing period. It's learning about myself. It's becoming the best version of myself, so that when I choose to be ready to step into that, when you choose to be ready to step into the life consulting, to calling someone in, to doing the things, you are that version of yourself that's a match for what you want. It's not just like waiting and like feeling like something's missing. It's like, actually, I'm filling myself up. I'm becoming a complete and whole human being, so that when that happens, you're ready for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. That's a completely different point of view. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a very good one. I couldn't make that up for myself. Yeah. But I once read, I think it was a post on Instagram who said, what would you do if you knew exactly that 6 months from now you will meet the one? And then I was like, oh, fuck, that's, well, I would handle everything completely different. I would like enjoy my life and be like, oh no, that's the right one. I will never be single again.
Right. And
yeah.
that's literally it, where it's like, if you believe, at least this is my core belief, you know, I know when I get to where I'm moving, I'm meeting my husband, I'm settling down, I'm buying my house, I'm doing my things. Why the hell would I rush my last single summer? Why would I want to be anywhere else if the rest of my life is going to be spent in being a wife and a mother? This is the last time I get to be selfish as fuck and just like be in this moment. And it's like, and also, if that's going to be my quote unquote person, what version of me do I have to be in alignment? And so a big concept I've played with, and I talk about this inside of our Arrival membership, where it's like this 10x version of yourself. And so this 10x version of yourself, you can't even, when you're doing a 2x, usually what we do is, well, this is what worked in my last relationship, so I'll just do better next time. Then you're just doubling your efforts in whatever the heck you were doing last time. Whereas a 10x, you have nothing to compare it to, because what you did last time isn't going to get you to a 10. So you actually have to think about, okay, so what is a 10x? So I think about that in my business. I think about that in my life. I think about that in my health. I think about that in my relationships. That future version of me now, everything that I do, everything I think, how I show up for myself. And actually the module I'm recording for you guys today, module E, is this kind of concept around embracing your worthiness and stepping into your standards and all this kind of stuff, because everything that is filtered through your brain and how you show up in relationship and how you communicate to people and how you date and how you run your business is filtered through the future version of you lens. Like, would the future 10x version of me do that, say that, eat that, choose that, sign up for that? Like, everything is filtered through that version, as opposed to this like, well, I didn't do that before, so therefore whatever. It's like, no, everything is from the future 10x version of you. And so when you can be in that space, that's when your life starts to change. And it comes into that kind of concept of, well, if that version of you is going to be, engaged in 6 months, what's right now for you? And it really does just kind of set the tone, as opposed to this like negative space of like waiting or, needing to do something. It's just, now everything is through the lens of, oh, this is for me. Like, there is no mistakes in life. Like, how can I make this for me? How can I become the version of myself? What am I filtering through my lens so that ultimately you become a match for that 6-month version of you or that 10x version of you? It's always blown my mind. Do you have any? I'm like, I know I go on tangents and I'm like, it blows my mind. Is there any other questions around the sacred wound or anything like that you have?
No, I think it's sometimes just hard to think outside of the box. You're so in your day-to-day life, you have so many reasons and things to think what you think right now that you can't even think about something else. So yeah, it's always great to have some input to see something you just couldn't see before. But yeah, that's right. What if I'm just becoming the next or the version that fits to, I don't know, 10,000 clients and whatever.
Yeah, honestly, when
Yeah.
you like align to that, when you're like, okay, if I have 10,000 clients and I'm pulling in X amount of dollars, what is that version of me doing every day? And what is she not? Like, for me, it was like, I'm giving out, like, I like to go out and I like to dance and I like to party sometimes, but like, I was like, that doesn't fit an 8-figure brand. Like, that just doesn't align. I don't have space in my brain to do that stuff anymore. And I was like, okay, that has to go. The version of me that's like being a wife and a mother and all these kind of things, it was like also 8-figure earner. I was like, that doesn't do chasing unavailable men. That doesn't do waiting by the phone. That doesn't do like, that's just not in alignment. Do I still have those feelings in my body? Of course, your subconscious, your body, like, you are programmed. There's been one way your brain has been programmed to go. So it feels fucking weird. You feel like an imposter. You're sitting there and you're like, I feel like weird. Like, this is not normal. But then you remind yourself, oh, but this is in alignment to my future self. Yeah, it's going to feel weird because it's not normal yet, but eventually it'll feel normal. And you just keep going at that pace. And you just keep comparing it to like, would, 10,000 client version me do this? Would she go after this person? Would she tolerate that type of behavior? Would she do this? And I'm talking all about that. And you guys just got module H today. So module E, I'm talking all about this worthiness and filtering yourself through this lens, because, and that's like, and I'm going to talk about like commitment ceremony and all that kind of stuff, because when you get to that stage, it's like nothing that's below that, you're like, I don't have time. I mean, that's not in alignment. And it just gets so easy to say no from that space, which helps. It always helps. But, and the next question, where's my mouse? This is what happens when you have 8,000 monitors. Okay. Next question I have from you is, I understand the theory behind feminine, but sometimes I struggle to integrate it into my dating life. I think some examples would help me. Like, how do I set a boundary in a feminine way? And I love this because we have boundaries this weekend. And then also I'm talking a little bit about this in the module that just dropped today, module H. And then I'm talking about it today in module, well, I guess Friday is when you would get it, module E. So I will talk about this more, but I do want to break it down because I guess I haven't. There's not really a module in this program like specifically around feminine and masculine and polarity. So I think it will be beneficial to even just put this in the product so we can kind of talk and break that down a little bit, because it's life-changing and I don't know why I didn't like break it down even further. So this is a perfect question. I was like, yeah, I guess like I break it all down. And I mean, okay. So, you know, we all have masculine, feminine. I feel like at this point in our lives, we kind of get that by now. And like, yes, there are men that can be more feminine and there are women that can be more masculine. I was very much in my masculine. I remember sitting when I lived in Asia, just like crying to one of my friends, being like, I just want to be more feminine, but like, I have zero idea how, because I was running my businesses and I was doing my things and I was in these fitness competitions and I was afraid of men. And like, I was like, I look cute. Isn't that it? Like, I'm so confused, but like internally, I love it. I look like I'm dressing like it, which I thought was the first thing. I'm like, I get my nails done now. I get my weekly massages. I get my hair done. Like, I'm spending money on myself. I still don't feel it. Like, I'm like, that's not something that's happening. And I feel like that's a standard path a lot of us go on. And so kind of to break that down, that's not what femininity is, even though, I mean, look at me, I'm a double Libra. I love pretty things, but masculine energy is the doing energy. It's very driven. It's task oriented. It's freaking logic. Like in our brains, every time we're trying to be like, how can I think my way into feminine energy? You're in your masculine energy. Like that is not how that works. It's very focused. It's very competitive. These things are great. This is what gets you ahead in your career. Like this is when I'm teaching, when it's days like today, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm very in my masculine. And then Mondays, because that's my CEO day, like very in my masculine. But in partnership, or when my partners have been here or I'm visiting them or whatever, I have to go through a transition because that doesn't match when I want a masculine partner. So a big thing to identify in your relationship dynamics is, do you want a masculine partner? And this doesn't have to do with, male, female. It's just like, do you want someone that's leading, protecting, planning, doing the things? Or is that more your role? Do you like to control? And like, there are relationships that do that. Like my mother, very masculine woman, she did all that. My father was very feminine. That was their dynamic. It didn't work well, but it was their dynamic. But so it's claiming that I want a I say it all the time. I'm like, I want a Viking. Like I want a freaking Viking, this big burly man. I mean, he's probably like, these are externals. I'm okay if he's not this big burly man, but it's like that energy of this like protector, this leader, this like, kind of thing. That's what I want. Therefore, that requires me to be in my feminine, right? And so if that's something you want, feminine is the receiving. And so this is the soft, this is the nurturing, this is the loving, the intuitive, the creative, the just soft, the soft person. And oftentimes we think feminine means weak. It is the strongest one. I talked about this, I think the first module or the second module, where I'm like, it is the strongest one because we know we can erupt and fuck you up in a second, but we choose not to. And the thing that I see a big block on this is like, well, I don't want to be too feminine because I don't want them to think that I can't do it myself. No one is thinking no one is thinking I can't do things myself, like open my door or open a jar or do the thing or run my business. Like no one's thinking that. But I know for the longest time, I thought that. I was like, well, if I don't prove myself that I can do all this on my own, they're going to take advantage of me. They're going to do something and they're gonna, I don't know, fuck me because of domestic violence, because of all of the things that I had been through. I was like, well, if I be vulnerable and I be too soft and I don't stand my ground, they're gonna take advantage of me. That's not how that works. And so we need, when we claim we want a masculine partner or a feminine partner, we have to step into the other one, because these two things are like magnets. And a lot of times in the beginning of relationships, it's like hot and heavy, and like he's leading at first and he's doing things, and then we get to this like dull magnet and it's no longer doing that, and we get mad at our partners about it, when in reality it is us. We cannot control another person. A lot of us are waiting around being like, why aren't they doing this? And it's like, well, something, you can't control what the heck they're doing, right? But if you want more masculinity in your life, how can you be more feminine? How can you be more receivership? And so when we're looking at these things, a good place to really start is looking at the fears of the masculine and the fears of the feminine. Again, you see me looking behind you because, of course, I have 8,000 freaking notes all the time. And so understanding the fears and the desires of men. Best thing you can ever know in your life is this: they, more than anything, love to be appreciated and respected. That's all they fucking want. Like, just like noticing them. And like, men love compliments. Again, I'm talking about this a lot in module HE. Like the rest of the series that we're going through now it was a lot of the inner work in the beginning. That's why I split it up in the Q&As in this way. And now it's like getting out there and like understanding the men and things like that. They love appreciation. They love respect. They melt, and they don't get it enough. This is why you see them being high achievers and they have all their father wounds and all the kind of things, because they just want to be good enough just like us. But this is where that comes from. Their biggest fear is not measuring up, not being good enough, being criticized, being shamed. The biggest masculine wound is shame. And so when we're nitpicking them, saying, but you didn't get me the things that I wanted, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, we're nitpicking them. And like my biggest lessons are like my two most recent relationships. Actually, I did this a lot with my partner, my first partner, where I was like, you can never do anything like just the way I wanted it. Right? Like, I'm a bougie motherfucker. Like, I love beautiful things. My date nights for myself are like candlelits and like all these things. And like, I wanted someone to love me in that way. Totally blocking the way he wanted to love me. And so it was always that he felt he could never do right, because that's not a natural thing to men. Like, that's not, of course, maybe like at a certain age, they're like in their mid 40s. I've had very romantic men that they're like, I've been married once, I know how this works, but they don't do it by choice. Like, they do it because they're afraid of getting in trouble. And that's not love, right? Like, that's little boy energy. And so that gets exhausting. And that's when we get to that phase of like, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And then they leave, and then they do these things because they've been so criticized. Whereas in my previous relationship or my next, whatever the fuck, last relationship, I guess is the way of saying that, it was like, this man, I just like let him love me in the way that he wanted to love me. And I made my receivership and my joy of it his favorite thing. And it wasn't this faking like good boy energy that we kind of get very confused on. It was like, I genuinely loved it. Like, this man for Christmas, I'm an experienced human being. Take me to a fancy hotel with a nice robe and like get me a massage and I'm happy. No, this man came to my house and saw that my hair dryer was broken and that my slippers were a little bit ratty, and what else did he get me? And some other things. And so he got me all these, but the research, it's some hats, because I always am usually wearing like a big ass fucking bougie hat. And so he did the amount of research to go get these things. And so when I open up a hair dryer on Christmas, I'm like, what? But also I know this man, and I'm like, I know how much research you probably put into this fucking hair dryer. And that's what I love. Like that, I'm like, sure, like whatever, like I'm here for it because you were giving it to me. And that then allows him to love you in the way that he wants to show you how to be loved. It's not going to be in the way that you want it. It's not like, we unintentionally emasculate men so often because we're telling them, this is how I want to be loved. And if you don't do this, you're doing it wrong. We don't do it on purpose. It's just the safety coping mechanisms that we do that really does just like diminish them and play in their biggest masculine wound, which is not measuring up. And so to shift that, right? There's two ways. Is one, however you love yourself, and we'll talk about this more in module E, of your worthiness and the standard for yourself and how you hold yourself. And like one time, you know, I make myself luxurious baths and I set up these things. So one day I came home, or I came back, we were in a hotel, and my partner had set up just a candlelit, like tiny little tea candles. Like it was so janky and so ghetto. Like it was this whole setup. But it was like, and then because he was a pilot, he like had all these little snacks that he ripped open the free snacks that you get on an airplane and then put them in a tray. And he's like, charcuterie. And I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is just like the effort. And so it's like, but he saw the way that I love myself, and the way if I've had a long day, how I like to wind down is a candlelit bath with a little bit of nice charcuterie.
With charcuterie.
good wine, but like he's like, this is what I got, but I know this is what to do. And so he couldn't really mess that up because he saw the way that I love myself. So that was one way my feminine is healed. And the way that you can start to look at your feminine outside of dating is just, how do you treat yourself day in and day out? How do you nurture yourself? How do you love yourself? And that's a day-to-day experience, right? Like that's the way that you dress, the way that you eat, the way that you spend your time, the way that you know, self-soothe. These things, people are watching how you do that. Just like little kids, men are watching, where they're like, how do you do that? Because it's not something they have, right? Like my partners, every single time, they're like, what are you journaling about? Or like my brother, he'd be like, I'm sitting and he was in Japan. And so sometimes I'm like journaling and he's like, so talk to me about that like journaling thing you do. Like, what is that? And I was like, my brain in words on paper. Like, I'm like, I don't understand. But it's not a natural thing because they were raised to be tough, provide, lead, don't cry, don't explore this part of self because it's feminine. So now it's this whole little awakening thing that they're like, I don't understand. So they're watching you, how you take care of you, and to model that femininity. Because again, we all have masculine, we all have feminine, and they haven't yet been explored this, so they have no idea. So when they're playing with it, they like, don't make them wrong about it. They have no idea. The other part of this is understanding, you know, the women's wants, needs, desires. And so the woman, as a woman, we want to be loved and cherished. That's it. We want to be loved and cherished. Our being loved is the same as men wanting to be appreciated. But sometimes our self-righteousness gets in the way of like, if you would just love me, I would appreciate you. And it's like, that's not how that works. The way we get love is by appreciating and respecting. And sometimes we feel like, oh, well, people have to earn respect. People have to earn my trust. The truth is, the masculine, you trust them. And I forget which module I talked about this. And I think it was actually module H. It's probably like, the way that you trust men is how much you trust yourself, right? How you show up for yourself, how much trust you build is like, even if you leave, I'm okay. Getting to that point is so fucking powerful. And then our biggest wound is disappointment, but our biggest fear is it being abandoned. And it's not just the physical abandonment of someone leaving, it's not feeling safe. It's not feeling seen. It's not feeling heard, right? And I'm sure you can think back to so many times in relationships where you're like, this sucks. You don't see me. You're not listening. You're not paying attention to me. But like, this is why when we're in partnership, these things, they just like butt heads because you're like, you don't see me. And they're like, you don't fucking respect me. You're yelling at me right now. You're treating me like a little boy. You're not letting me lead you. You're not letting me do these things. And we're just like doing this. And it's like, just see me. And it's creating this wound, this gap between love and respect, love and appreciation, admiration, and all these little spaces. And so to really move away from this and step into how to, you know, boost this in relationship, which is the question that you asked of like, how do I do this in dating? This part doesn't make sense. Me neither. I was like, I'm cute. I don't get it. Like, like, what do you mean? Look at all my nice stuff. It really is, the easiest thing is receiving joyfully. And that means like, make your response to things someone's favorite thing to do, because that is going to spark his doing energy. He's going to want to provide for you. That's his natural thing. He wants to take care of you. He loves to give. Men love to give. And especially when you have a response that is true. Like I said, when he gave me a hairdryer, I genuinely, it's honestly the best hairdryer that I've ever had. But like when he gave it to me, I was just like so in love that he even gave me a present, you know? And the fact that like later in like after I found out about this and Christmas passed, like the fact that he called my friends to figure out all this stuff, he had all this research, like his friends, and I was like, for a hat and a hairdryer. And I was like that's it. Like, I don't even care what the fuck it is. Like, it's just cute. And it's like, because his favorite thing, and I have so many posts on this where I was like, I could like feel his eyes on me all the time, because anytime I'm in something, and I don't fake it, I'm very much over the top. I know that. But the fact that I can now express my joy for things like delightfully, I'm like way excited. Like I just posted a reel where I'm like dancing in front of a lemonade stand because I literally was screaming in excitement about the lemonade stand. Like, people like to give me things, God, universe, source, plus my friends, plus men, because it's fun. I'm someone that receives so well. Like I'm not like, oh no, I can't receive that. I'm like, this is so amazing. And I mean it. But that took time, because for a long time I was like, oh no, like that is way too much. I don't deserve that. Or like, oh, because it would be this like, oh, well, if you give me this, therefore I have to now give you something. Or I have to earn it in order to receive it. Or I have to now give you something back because I know your mental games, because a lot of our parents were manipulative like that. If I give you something, you better be a good girl. So we close ourselves off from truly just receiving something and being like, oh my God, thank you. And then there's this other part of it where we don't want them to think that we can't do it ourselves. So we don't want to receive. I don't want them to pay for this because I don't want them to think I can't do it and that my business isn't successful, or I don't have, like, I see this with my clients a lot where it's like, well, I don't want him to think that my business isn't successful and therefore that he has to pay for everything. I'm like, put your fucking credit card away. Don't even try. Like, don't do that. Like, if you want a man that is providing, like, they love to get a man loves to get a boy is going to ask you to split things. He's going to do these kind of things. And that is okay for some people's relationships. That is not what I want. I don't. I can provide whatever the fuck I want for myself. I don't want to. I just don't want to. Like, that's the choice. Is like, I can sit. I know I can open that jar of pickles. But if you're home, I'm going to ask you to open that jar of pickles. Like, I know I could stab it. I could smash it on things. I could open it up because you're here. And I know it's going to boost your masculinity. And I also know it's just kind of nice. Like, it's just nice that you do things for me. Please open the jar of pickles. Like, and then being like, oh my God, like, thank you. Like, being in that receivership of that saves marriages, saves relationships. And it really is just sitting there, and it's like receiving, but receiving joyfully is one of the key and biggest things. And so it's really moving into that, and it's letting him feel like he's needed, especially now in this modern day with women on the rise. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love it. I love it. But the biggest wound. So there's, I listen to a lot of Connor Beaton, who is Man Talks Radio podcast. And he talks about this, where it's like nowadays, 41% of men make less than the women at home. Whereas that's what they've been trained. Provide for your woman to make more money. They're not going to college anymore. They're not really use, like, we don't even need them to make babies anymore. Like, there's not really a use. And so they're having this whole mental health crisis because we as women are like, one of the parts of us is still, we want someone to provide for us. We want someone to, be in this leadership and all these kind of things. And they're like, but there's not really space for that. And so the more you can make a man feel needed in your life, the more powerful he feels, and the more that he feels like he has a place in his life. And that comes from your femininity, that comes from receiving, that comes from letting him lead you. And that doesn't necessarily mean financially or whatever, but in what ways are you kind of controlling or getting in the way of things, or not even letting him, my biggest wound is I didn't want to feel needy, but there's a difference between neediness and making him feel needed, because neediness is, I cannot survive without you. I've had that. Codependency is fucking real. Like, I've had that, the trauma bonding, the flame, like the twin flame shit, like that part. Yeah, that's way too much pressure, where someone's like, I can't be responsible for your happiness. Like, that is a lot. But when you like need your man, and like there's like a difference, like you're turned on by him and you're like, I just like want you. Like, I need you here. Like, that is different. Even just like, I need you to open this jar of pickles. Like, that is different. Obviously, he knows you're capable of opening your door, a jar of pickles, all the kind of things. But like, if you just let him do that, he feels needed, he feels desired. And it's such a simple switch. Like, you don't have to prove the fact. Like, that is such an innocent wound from our childhood of like, oh, I have to prove that I can do it myself. I can open my door. I can pay for my bills. I don't know what the heck other people are waiting for them to do, but like, those are the main ones where it's like, I can do it myself. And it's like, yeah, no one is challenging you on that. Like, no one is, obviously he knows you're an educated woman. Why else would a high value man be out with you? He knows you are very capable of doing things on your own. You're not a child. But if you can just let him feel needed by doing these little micro things, he's going to be like drooling over you. It's actually a huge thing. And this comes from letting down your masculine shield and dating. And so our big thing in, especially entrepreneurs or survival or anyone that's been through shit, we fear being open. And you guys have heard me say this all the time, where it's like, your job in this journey is to no longer put any more shit in your body. You know, like, if something comes in, it's like just letting that emotion move through you, letting it go through. It's no longer putting more in. And that's doing that quick little thought process of, I choose to stay open. Like, I choose to stay open right now. So like, when they're not doing something right, or like when they, I don't know, plan a stupid date that like you wouldn't, like, one of my friends, he's like, we're going to go do activities. And I was like, I don't even own jeans. Like, how do you, what activity am I going to do? And he's like, we can go mini golf. We can go bowling. I was like, I'm wearing stilettos. Like, I don't own anything like that. But I was like, but also, you're leading. Like, I trust you. You got it. Like, you go do your thing. I got it. I borrowed a pair of jeans from my friend. I still wore stilettos. But I was like, sure, we're here. But it's like, I'm gonna let you lead. I'm gonna surrender and stay open to this experience. I'm gonna be so excited, genuinely, because it's something new that I've never done. I'm just gonna see how this is. And literally, the man, like, I can think of the guy that took me on the date. He's like, I feel like such a man. And I was like, go. Like, it's like, that's because if you can take off this like shield that you have of like, I don't want to be too open because what if he thinks I'm too much, or what if he thinks I'm too vulnerable, or things like that. It's like, so what? You're not trauma spilling onto him. You're just being your feminine self, which is love, which is nurturing, which is caring, which is intuitive. That is your magnetism. And I'm going to talk about magnetism in module M. A lot of this stuff is like, I know we're coming up on time, so it's like a lot of this stuff being broken down even more so over the next modules, because now we're moving into the actual like polarity and play and getting out into the world. We just first needed to do the inner workings and things like that. And so really, when it comes to the dating and the femininity piece, it's just, where can you let yourself receive? Right? How can you do it joyfully? How can you put your masculine shield down where you get to be playful and sensual? Like, that to men is the most magnetic thing. I just shared, I forget what reel I shared that on, but recently, and then I have another one coming up, because it really is about when you feel safe enough in yourself, you feel safe enough to express your femininity, right? If we don't feel safe within ourselves, opening up the portals of our feminine is it's hard. This is why when I was telling you in the initial part where it's like, I said to my friend I wanted to be feminine, but I didn't feel safe enough yet. I didn't feel like I could be my goofy fucking self that's like screaming emo music, DJing the next, like running around, shaking my ass in front of a lemonade stand, because I was like, people are going to think I'm weird. This is going to think like that, all the narratives that we have. But truly, when you do the first part of what we've done so far, you start to cultivate this inner safety within yourself. And now we get to actually explore, what does feminine expression for you mean? And then it just flows naturally in relationship, where you get to feel safe enough to receive. You get to be playful. You get to, be off the cuff and wild and loving and vulnerable. And it just comes naturally to the point that they're like, where the hell, who are you? You miss rare and valuable thing. Like, what is this? And so we are stepping into that, but I did just kind of want to have a little breakdown of that right now, because I realized I hadn't deeply gone into that yet. So thank you for that question. It was very good. Do you have any questions around this?
No, there were so many information and so much input, and I've written down a lot of things.
Love that.
So many things to, yeah. Like, yeah, I think it's the same with the question before. I've done so much thinking on that. Like, as you said, how could I be more feminine? Oops, I'm masculine right now. And yesterday, I realized that I know how to be feminine. It's as you said, I know how to be like bubbly and friendly, and know how to find pressure in the tiniest things. So that's not a problem. I just have to switch it back on. I just have to let my guard down, yeah, and just be who I am.
Exactly.
And not think so much about oh, what is feminine? I have to write it down and I have to be like that. I already know. Yeah, that was big.
I love that. And then it is that funny thing where it's like we're such logical human beings. We're like, okay, what is the logical step to get me to be a female?
Yeah.
Feminine. And it's like, no, your feminine essence, especially as females, we have it. It's very heightened in us. And if I always think, and I said this in, I need to get my modules right. No, it was module A. Yeah, the feminine essence, where it's like babies. Babies are the most feminine thing. They get to. I have my niece, she lives in Japan with my brother, but like the videos, she's excited about like a little like water bottle that has like a little squirty on it. She's like, what? Like it's the best thing ever. And I'm like, this feminine little creature, like it's just fun to watch how excited she gets over a freaking box and like our natural tendency. And then all of a sudden life started to happen and we build these protectors of like, no, you can't have that childlike play anymore, that delight. It's unsettling to a lot of people. You can't be that happy. Tone it down. Be seen but not heard. All the narratives that we've been told. And so now as we start to get older, it really is just getting rid of all of the shit that told us we're not allowed to be that way, and then just turning it on. Like, I'm not saying like every single second you're like, amazing, but it's like it is that emotional honesty. Femininity, at least to me in the way that I teach it, it's emotional honesty, because there's also the dark femme. I have a very dark brain. I have a brain that is a depression and anxiety and worst case scenario thinking. And my ex used to tell me, he's like, you go through more emotions in a day than I have in the last 3 months. And I'm like, thank you. Like, it's so good, isn't it? And he's like, I don't know how you keep up with it. And I was like, it's just me. Like, I've been this way my whole life, but I had to shut it down for so long using drugs and alcohol and antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications and all the fucking shit to now come into this space where it's like, actually feminine is just not that you like outspurt it everywhere, but like you feel everything. That's why I said it's actually the strongest, because you feel it and you know where to transmute it and how to hold it and when to express it. And it's just getting rid of all the protectors that told us it's wrong, to then sit there and go, actually, this is just me. I get very excited about things. I get very sad about things. I feel this way. I don't feel that way. It's like, this is just where the feminine is. And as soon as we start to move away from like trying to note down of like, how do I get this right? You can't get it wrong. You were born this way. It's your natural way of being. It's just getting rid of all the shit that got built up in the process. I love it. But we will be doing, I mean, this is, you're way ahead of it. I loved this question. I was like, this is a perfect segue because this is exactly what we're going to be covering the rest of this time. But yeah, even more so because this one, the module that got dropped today was healing the relationship to the masculine. And then understanding the masculine brain. So I just started to get into this process, and then we'll be getting more into all the getting out there world and all the good things. So I'm excited for that. Before we close out, do you have any more questions or anything?
I think I have to integrate a lot now. all of the things I've written down, all of the things that came up in my mind too. And yeah, I was just really feeling when you said I would like to have get invited into a hotel with a fancy robe and things, and then he got me a hairdresser. But I could really feel the energy, and it was like, yeah, as he said, oh, a hairdresser, and thought so much about it, and I think that, yeah, that was good. I think I truly understood the difference between that. There's more love and more thinking and more I don't know, just more emotion behind that hairdresser, even though you thought you didn't want a new hairdresser from him. So that was very inspiring.
Yeah.
That's
And that's when you give people permission, because the truth is we all have different, beyond love languages, we all have different ways that we like to be loved. And especially in early stage dating, you don't know that about someone, right? And they don't know that about you. Yet we take it as like a personal attack. If like, he didn't get me what I wanted. It's like, well, did you tell him what you wanted? And it's like, no, he should just know. By what standard? He's not going to know for another 10 years. Like, men just don't think that way. But it's like, but the amount, if you truly know men, where it's like the amount of thought that goes into the thing that they got you. Like my mentor was talking about, she was in Japan with a bunch of guys on a ski trip, and she's like, we were out shopping all day long for their wives. He came back with a lunchbox. Like, nothing describes men more. Or it's like they're like this, and I was like, yeah, that literally is my relationship. Where it's like all these things, I was like, I know how much thought went into this, and it's like, and I love you for that. And also, you're teaching me new ways of being loved, because I thought this was the way I needed to be loved. If it wasn't this way, and then all my body is going to go into, oh, he doesn't love me. And it's like, no, he's just loving you in the way he wants to love you, which then expands you. And ultimately, the deepest love and what we all want in relationship is acceptance. Both parties in relationship just want to be fully accepted for who they are. So the more that you can, someone comes in, and of course you get to siphon between like, is this the way that I want to be loved? Like, do I want a hair blow dryer for Christmas? And it's like, yeah, actually, like, this is kind of great. Like, the experience side of things, I can plan them. I can tell him, I love this so much, or I can be more direct of what I want, or I can have my best friend sweep in and like give him ideas. But like, yeah, actually that is. But for some people, it's like, no, I want someone like my best friend. She wants experiences. She wants bougie things. If someone got her hairdryer, she'd probably throw it at them. Like, that's not what she wants. And that's okay. For me, again, it's really deciphering, like, how do you want to be loved? What are your needs? What are your values? We're going to be talking about this in Module E. Can you communicate them effectively? And then you get to decide who you want. Like, there are 8.5 billion people in this 8.5 billion people. Like, someone's gonna figure it out in the way that you want. Do we have to compromise and figure out, like, what does it mean to be accepted? It's a huge, huge thing. And then they get to, like, because men, honestly, if they've been in a relationship, they've been put down so much where they can't get it right. Someone has yelled at them, someone has done something, so they're actually really afraid to even try to get you something, to do something for you, because they've been yelled at for doing it wrong. And so it's this like rare and valuable moment when you sit there and you're actually so pleased because they just did it. And that's when you heal the feminine pain body, because it's no longer, I need you to get me this present to make me feel loved. It's, I'm good, like, on my own, because I can do these things myself, and I do these things myself. So anything you give me is just a value add. Like, anything a hair blow dryer, fucking great. Like, it's a value add. I still will go to the hotels and do the things I want. You know, it really is just kind of playing with that mindset where it's like, if you want full acceptance, how can you fully accept another? And then regulate between, is this what I want? Can I still fully accept them? And then you get to choose if that's the partner that you want. But yeah, it's a really freeing concept to start to step into. So I'm excited to explore this even more within the coming modules and just kind of get into this working of the outward approach now, which is going to be really exciting.
Great.
All right, my love.
You.
Well, of course. Thank you for being patient with the time.
No problem.
I'm so sorry. Oh my god. I like saw that. I'm like, okay, fuck. Okay, but I will get it right for the next one. Notification. It will be at 10 a.m. I don't do things before 10 a.m. I don't know why that was on there, but anyways, thank you for being patient with that. That was my fuck up. But yeah, I love this, and I'll see you inside of Telegram. And if you have any other questions, I know, like, when we're like sitting and marinating on things, questions will come up.
Yeah.
Go blow up Telegram. It'll be fun. It'll be a vibe. So, and then enjoy Module H that got dropped earlier today.
Yes, I have to watch that.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of it. It's nice to finally meet you face to face.
Yeah, it was great having 1 hour just for myself.
I know, you're like,
Thank you.
coaching session. I love this. I love it. All right, my dear. I'll
Great.
see you somewhere on the internet.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.